Welcome back, everyone. In this video, let's finish styling our signup form. So here I want to give this div a class name, and the class name is going to be sign_up_container. As for this h1 that contains the sign up with your email and password, I'm going to make this into a span because technically speaking, our title, which I'm going to use an h2 instead of an h1, just so that in terms of the HTML, it's a little bit more clear to web scrapers that this isn't something as high ranking of a title as an h1. So I'm going to use an h2. Here, I'm going to say something like, don't have an account, like so, because this is a pretty common format for a sign up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sign up form style sheet. So I'm going to say sign up form.styles.sass. And inside, I am going to say that the styles will target our sign up form container. And I'm going to give it display flex, flex direction, column. I'm going to set the width to 380 pixels. And then I'm just going to target the H2. And for the H2, I'm just going to say that I want to give it a margin on the top and also no margins on the side. So just margin top, bottom, no left, right. And then here inside of our sign up form component, I just need to make sure to also import in that style sheet. And now let's save this. We go back to our application, and there we go. We see that we have what we need inside of this form. Next, what we need to do is we need to now create this button component. So here we see that we have this button component. Let's recreate this button. So let's actually think about what this button entails. We notice that this button has some custom styling. But we also know that there is this sign in with Google button. So this button and this button look the same other than the fact that there's a couple stylistic differences in how they perform. So there might be some consideration here for us to already think about making a general button component that can adapt to the styling required for where it's used. Let's check around and see if there's any other buttons anywhere. Here we see that we're still using a regular black button. And inside, we notice that this button is a Pay Now button, but this one is actually not as required for us. Inside of the application, we also notice that there is this same button that we had before, but it's inverted. So if we check, we know that we have our black button, but inside of here, we also notice we have a default white button that when you hover, turns black. So it looks like there are three types of buttons. There's this default black button, there's the inverted button, and then there is this sign in with Google button. So now that we have these three different buttons, let's start coding out the button component itself. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make a general button component. So inside of components, let's make a new button component. So we'll make a button folder and we'll do button.component.jsx. Now, for those of you wondering with this button component, shouldn't we name it something else since there's already a button HTML element? Well, for us, our button is actually always going to be capitalized because as we know, we can't write different components that start with a lowercase letter. So our button is just a capitalized button. And that's enough for us to know that that is indeed our button. So here I can say const button is equal to a functional component that will return a button that has some specific styling. So it's still a button at the end of the day. The only thing is just that we know we need some class name that we can target for this button to apply our styling to it. And what we're going to apply to this is, let's call it button container. And then inside of our button, we want to use this button the way that you would use any button, meaning that whatever inside text or H1s or P tags or span tags you put in the button, we want to do the same inside of our button. And that will just, of course, be the children. So we'll just render the children inside of this button component. Let's export this out by default. And let's do a little thinking here. We know that we have 3 types of buttons. So here, what I'm going to say is that we know inside there's 3 buttons. We have our inverted button, we have our default button, and then we have our Google sign-in button. So how do we leverage this button type in order to show styling for 3 different kinds of buttons? Well, what we can do is we know that we're really just modifying this one button styling. So really, perhaps we can control the styling by a class. So we can have default styling for a button, inverted styling, as well as Google sign-in styling. And how we can do that is we can create some kind of variable. Let's call it our button types, for example. And here we know that what we're telling it to apply is classes. So we can even do button type classes as the name of this object. And inside, we know that, for example, if we get past some value like button type, if the value is the string of Google, then we want to render the class name Google sign-in. And if we got inverted, then we'll show inverted. And what this does is this allows us to use a more readable and legible kind of input for button type, but render whatever it is internally that we need in order to properly display this button type. So through this one value that we're getting as a prop, we can now control how we want to render this button. It's just that right now we're only doing it by class name. So let's just destructure, or not destructure, but let's string interpolate button type classes, like so. And in fact, in order for interpolation, this needs to be JavaScript, and I need to change my regular quotes over to backticks. But I'm going to say button type classes, and then I'm going to call button type off of button type classes. So button type here is expected to be a string. And remember, with our button, we pass it all those other values that we were seeing inside of our signup form. We had a type of submit. So here, in order for that to go through, we can do our ... other props. And then we'll just spread this in after the class name. So now let's save this. So now that we have this class name set up, how do we actually get the styling? Well, as you guessed it, I've already done the styling for you. So create a button.styles.sass file. And then inside, paste in the button style sheet that I provided for you. So once you've pasted it in, you can see inside we have our button container, which is our class name that adds all of these different stylings and hover effects. But you'll notice that I have the Google sign-in class name styling and the inverted styling that will overwrite some of the styling that applies by default. So now we just need to make sure that we import this in. And then inside of our signup form, let's import in the button itself. And then all we need to do now is come down to our button and paste this in. And now if we save this and we go back to our application, we see we have our button. In fact, now just to confirm, let me add a button type, which is equal to, let's say, Google. If we come back, we see it becomes a Google button. And then if we change this to inverted, we see we have an inverted button. So there we go. We have our button component. I'm going to switch it back to the default, and it's the default. Awesome. So we've styled our signup component as well as our button. So now that we have all this set up, let's actually work on our signup page, and then we can finish up this overall page for sign in and sign up. Now there's 2 things left that we need to do before moving on. The first is that we need to actually commit our code. So let's go back to our terminal. Let's add all the things that we did. So here I want to say that I created the sign up component, the form input component, as well as the button component. And then let's push this up. And the second thing that I want you to do is I actually want you to attempt to create this sign-in component. Here, all the sign-in component does is it takes an email and a password and it tries to verify. Otherwise, you can sign in with Google. It looks very similar to our sign-up component, but with the sign-in portion, you may have to look inside of the Firestore docs a little bit to figure out the method. But I want you to at least try and figure out how to replicate pretty much what we have here, but inside of sign-in, and just trigger a callback for sign-in. You don't necessarily need to actually call the method, but at the very least, I want you to try and recreate what we did for sign-up, but here, create it for sign-in, because we already have all the components. We already know all the logic, so this is a good chance just to practice everything that we've learned for building the most complex component that we've built so far. So good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.